Brilliant. So if I could get you to introduce yourself and what you get up to in your business.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Vicki Weinberg, and in the shortest possible way, I help businesses to sell their products on Amazon. So I can help businesses who have products already that are selling elsewhere and want to get started on Amazon. And I also work with businesses who are on Amazon already, but perhaps need help with either some aspect of managing their account or increasing their sales.
That sounds amazing. How did you get started in that business?
So it's quite a long story, which I hope is okay. I'll try and make it as short as possible, which is about, I think it was 8 years ago now, when I was on maternity leave for my second child, I started my own brand of baby products. I was kind of looking for something to do, and I designed a brand of original products, which I then found a manufacturer for, and then I started selling online. And originally I was selling on like a Shopify store, and I thought that would be and I don't know that was kind of my plan. That was I thought that would be enough. It's hard to get people onto your website. I found, and then I'm looking around for what to do, and I decided to start selling them on Amazon. And I did a lot of research into how to do well on Amazon. What's involved. I was just obsessed with listening to podcasts and stuff on YouTube about selling on Amazon. And so my products went on there. This was, like I say, 8 years ago. So it was quite different then as well, I have to say. It wasn't quite, it was always a popular marketplace, I know, but not quite as saturated as it is now. So I do want to lead with that because I I did very well on Amazon, but I want to be really honest. I think now it's a lot harder. So I do want to be honest about that. But anyway, I started selling my products on Amazon. I did really, really well. Like I think it was like 90%, 80, 90% of sales coming through Amazon, like so much more than my website. I tried a few other things, but Amazon was the thing that worked really well for me. Um, and I do think I understood it quite well. I then would get people coming to me, so people that I knew from my networking group saying, "Oh, I'd like to get my products on Amazon, and can you help me do that?" And I'd say, "Yeah, of course." And I was giving people advice and helping them with product listings. And then at some point, I just thought, well, actually, I didn't think. My husband said, "You should actually start charging people for this because you're giving away a lot of time and knowledge for free." And by the way, I was very happy to do so. But I think he was right, and I think I was kind of pushed a bit more in that direction when COVID happened, because even though I could continue to sell online during then, I couldn't get any products manufactured. I couldn't get anything shipped over here because my products were made abroad, and all the factories were closed. And that's when I really started working with other businesses, because at that time there were a lot of people wanting to get onto Amazon. And as I say, I was running out of things to sell very quickly. And so that's when I think I probably around the time I started doing this full time, as it were.
That sounds amazing. And I love how you've been there, done that, and now you can actually share your knowledge, to people. And especially like you said, it's not exactly easy nowadays because it is so saturated. There's so much going on there that it's not just as simple as, okay, create some listings. Yeah, I'll get some people to buy stuff. And then, there's just so much more involved nowadays. I mean, I can't quite comprehend it personally myself.
Yeah, and to be honest, the reason I say that, Dawn, is because I know that it used to be, it almost was that thing of like put a listing on Amazon and people will find it and buy it. It was a lot easier, and so the only reason I
Mm,
really want to be clear about the fact that I did have it a lot easier back then is because I think sometimes now I meet people who are really disappointed because they put their products on there and then they go, "Oh, no one's buying them," and it's not that they've done anything wrong or anything like that. And I don't want people to be disheartened, but I think you need to work harder at getting sales on Amazon now than you used to. And I just want to be really honest about that, because it is really disheartening. It's not an easy place to get set up on, like hence why I have a business helping people do that. And it can be
mm.
really hard when someone spends lots of time, effort, maybe money to get their products on there, and then they think, "Oh, well, I'm not getting many sales, or I'm not showing up on page one." And honestly, most of the time it's nothing they're doing. It's just that it's really, really busy, and there's a lot on there, and then there's a lot of people who've been selling there for a long time as well, and they will always have an advantage because Amazon isn't like your own website, because Amazon as a business wants to make money, and so they will prioritize making money, I think, over anything else. And so the people that have been there for 10 years and they're guaranteed to make X amount of sales every day, they're always going to be on the top of page one because
Mm.
they're making the most money. And that sounds very cynical, but I just want to be honest about that, because I a big yeah, that's a big part of what I do is I want to be honest with people that it won't be for everyone and it will be work. And even if it is a good place for your product, there is some work involved. And I just like to be really, yeah, really honest about that up front, because I think it's not a small undertaking getting onto Amazon. And I just think it's good for me to be really honest about that and what's involved.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really agree. So, one of my questions for you today is what is kind of the best practice when starting out trying to do an online products business?
Um, so for online products, so I'll give some advice. I think that all that applies wherever you're going to sell your products, if that's okay. And
Yeah.
that's to do your research before you even get to the stage of starting your business, starting thinking about sourcing your product or designing your product. I think it's really important to spend more time than you think you need to on the research. So is your product idea viable? And then by that, I mean, are people going to buy it? So is it that you think you've got a good idea, or have you actually shared your idea with other people who might have the same, be in the same situation or the same kind of issue, and just check that they also think that it's a good idea and that they would pay money for it?
Mm,
Because, you don't want to sort of forge ahead with something that you think is brilliant, but actually maybe there were some, I don't want to say flaws, but maybe there were some ways the product could be improved, or adjustments that could be made that would make it more viable, if
mm,
that's a way of saying it. And also to check that there aren't lots and lots of other people selling exactly the same thing. And that doesn't mean that you can't sell the same product as someone else, because I mean there's only so many original ideas. I don't think there's many things that you could sell now that nobody's ever come up with before, but you have to think about what makes your product different to all of the other
mm,
products out there. Because I'll give an example. One of the products I used to sell was a baby towel, and at the time my towel was the biggest and the thickest you could buy in the UK at that time, made out of organic materials and no chemicals. So that for me, even though as you can imagine, you could buy so many baby towels, that just hundreds of them. But at that time, I knew mine was bigger and I knew mine was thicker, and I knew it was, like I said, it didn't have any chemicals in it. So I had sort of unique selling points or USPs that I could talk about that I knew differentiated mine from the others. Whereas
mm.
if my towel was a generic copy of others on the market, then I honestly don't think I would have done as well, because why would someone choose to buy mine over someone else's? So I think doing that research and thinking about, yeah, making your product as good as it can be and making sure there is a market for it, and making sure that you know how you're going to position your product. So is it a simpler and therefore cheaper version of something that's already out there? Is it more premium? Where does it fit? And how will you talk about your product in relation to others? Because as well as getting your, you've got an idea for a product, let's say, as well as getting your product manufactured or sourced, you also have to sell it. And I think thinking about the positioning of your products before you've even created it will really help you refine what your product is, what it does, who it's for, and how you're going to talk about it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really key. And as well, like, I think it might be just key to just remember that although there are loads of products in every single sector out there, you can always find something that makes you unique or create like a certain part of the product that can be unique from the others instead of just being like, oh, well, there's just so many, I give up. And then, you don't get
Oh,
anywhere
yeah.
and you don't make that move. It's like, there's so many different ways you can go about it.
Absolutely. And it might not be the product, it might be you. Maybe you have make your product, or maybe there's something about you and your experience, or maybe it's the brand, maybe it's to do with your packaging, maybe it's to do with you're going to do, and I know lots of organizations that do charitable donations, or you sometimes you'll see businesses that will plant a tree for every order, or buy one donate one, and I'm not saying you have to
Mm,
do any or all of these things, but I think it's just thinking about what will help you stand out, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the product.
yeah, there's so many different aspects. My next question for you is what kind of problems should people account for when going into the online products business?
Oh, there's quite a lot. What sort of things? So as I said, I think you can sort of remove hopefully a lot of potential problems by doing that research up front. And I talk about this all the time because I do think it's that important that you don't just think, oh, I've got an idea, let's go and see who can make it and head off to find manufacturers. I really don't think that's a good idea. I mean, you do
Mm,
need to do that, but spend the time doing the research first, and that will take away some of the problems. As part of that, the other thing I didn't mention, but I think is important to do that will help prevent future problems, is to think about how, when I talk about positioning your products, I also think it's good to think about how much you're going to sell your product for before you think about getting your product made, manufactured, sourced, whatever. The reason I say this is because I've seen people that have run into problems because they've got a product made and it costs, let's say it costs £5 to get it made. And then they say, oh, well, I want, I've got to account for postage and this and that and that. So I have to sell it for, I'm just pulling numbers out of my head. I have to sell it for £15 because otherwise I
Mhm.
don't make a decent margin. But if every other product that's in the same category is priced at £12, nobody's going to pay £3 more for a new product just because it costs you X amount to make it, if that makes sense. Unless there's
Yeah,
something different about the way it's made. So perhaps I don't know, it's an artisan, or it's made by there are, I think there are exceptions to that. Maybe it's about how it's made, where it's made. But that what I'm trying to say is I think that where you can get into trouble is when you price that way around. And so you're thinking about trying to get a profit. Whereas I think if you go, okay, I'm looking around and similar products cost this amount of money, but I think mine is slightly better because it has these extra features, so I can price it for this amount or whatever it is. And you think about where your product fits and what you ideally want to price it for. Then if you
mm,
go into looking to get it sourced or made and you already have that in mind, it makes finding a supplier slightly helpful because you'll be able to say, okay, well, actually, I can't work with them because they can't, the costs don't work. Or you can start having conversations about, okay, what can I do? If you find someone that you feel like you can work with, you can have conversations around, well, I know I need it to come in around this for me to, what I'm trying to say is you've got a sense of the numbers. You'll kind of know the kind of price that you'll be looking for at the outset for you to make the margin that you want. And if it doesn't, you'll be able to have conversations around how can we work towards this price? Is it simplifying something? Is it changing a component? And make those decisions. But I just think you come from a lot more informed place if you've done all this research. I know I keep coming back to research, but I think it's so important.
oh, definitely, yeah. And it's, I think doing anything as starting a career change or starting a business in beauty, no matter what kind of what you're trying to do, research is like just the foundation, I think, of everything. So I don't blame you for kind of harping on about it because, you have to make initial investment as well into the business. You need to obviously get some products made to get started. And, if you didn't quite do your research right, it can be quite costly, can't it, as well?
It can. And I just think it's heartbreaking when someone spent so much time and money, because this research does take a lot of time, and I understand that, and effort, but it also takes a lot of time and effort to get your products actually in your hands, to find someone to manufacture it, to maybe do prototyping, whatever it is. That can be a
Mm,
long, hard process. And I think it's heartbreaking if you get to the end of that and then you realize there's some kind of flaw that means that your product isn't selling, or it is selling, but actually you're not making any money, or perhaps just breaking even. Um, and especially if with a little bit of planning and preparation, perhaps that situation might be slightly different. Um, yeah, and I'm trying to, yeah, I think for me, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad who hasn't done it that way, because to be honest, when I launched my first product, I did so many things that I didn't do the second time around as I
mm.
expanded my range, because the first time round I didn't have a clue and I made so many mistakes. And that's why I'm really passionate about talking about what I've learned, because I just think you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, I think it's just, I'm trying to share as much as I can, sort of the things that I learned along the way that I found really helpful, because it is a big undertaking. It does take a lot of time, and some of the things I'm suggesting do add to the time. But as you say, you're not going to be able to launch a range of products without putting some money behind it. And I think you can feel a bit more confident about investing if you know, okay, I've done my research and I'm pretty sure this is going to sell and I know I can make a profit. I think if you go into it with that knowledge, I think it makes spending or investing that initial money a bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. So is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up the episode today?
I think I'll just come back to what I was talking about with Amazon, if that's okay, Dawn, which is
Yeah, yeah.
just to say a few things, because I know I've talked about what I do. I help people sell their products on Amazon. So I think there can be sort of a misconception that that means I think Amazon is amazing. I think it's a great place and everyone should have their products on Amazon. So first of all, I want to say that's not the case. And the reason that's not the case is because I think there are products that do really well and there are products that don't, either
Yeah.
because that area is really, really saturated. So, for example, I don't think I would try and sell the products, the baby products I was selling years ago. I don't think I would try and sell them on Amazon if I was starting that brand now, because, like, there were so many baby towels on Amazon. I sell towels, swaddles, baby tableware products, and some of my products, if I was looking now, I would say, do you know what, it's so saturated, I don't think I've got enough of a USP for me to make that a go. There were also certain products where people just don't think to go to Amazon. So there is a handmade section on Amazon, but I still think a lot of
Mm.
people, if they're looking for a handmade or personalized product, they go to Not on the High Street or Etsy. That's not to
Yeah.
say if you sell a product like that, you can't sell on Amazon, but I don't think that should be the main channel where you're putting all of your focus. It might be that you start on Etsy, say, and then you think, okay, let's give Amazon a try, but I wouldn't want you to put all your eggs in the Amazon basket. So I want to be really honest about that it won't be for everyone. Um, and then also just for people to know, as I said right at the beginning, that it isn't the easiest marketplace to get started on for various reasons. It's not very user friendly when you like look at the platform behind it, especially compared to eBay, Etsy, all these other marketplaces, and that can surprise people. So I always do like to tell people that so they know what to expect. It can be a bit of a faff. I do think for lots of people and lots of products, it's worth it.
Mm.
However, I do always say to anyone who's thinking of working with me or even doing it for themselves, because you totally can do it yourself, you don't need to work with someone else, but it does take some time and effort to get your products listed. You need to do it really well. It's not something you can just throw up a listing with a bit of text and a couple of photos. People won't find it and they won't buy it, being really honest. So you need to do it really well, and that does take some time and effort. So I just wanted to end with that because I just think it's really useful for people to know, because when I first started selling on Amazon, I was listening to podcasts and watching YouTube about all these people saying, oh, I made a million in 6 months or whatever, maybe not that much, but you know what I mean. And there was a lot of,
Yeah.
oh, it's a
Yeah.
really good way to make a lot of money. And it is a way to make money, but it's not going to happen overnight. I think very few sellers are making that sort of money in 6 months, being really honest.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of people, but even when you're looking at content creators and stuff, people think, oh, it's so easy, and actually there's so much hard work that goes in
Mm.
the background that you just don't see, and that is very much inclusive of, I think, a lot of businesses, including selling products online. Because you look at kind of like listings on Amazon, and they've got so many keywords. They've got to fill it to the brim with details, and answer questions. You've got to keep the upkeep of like looking at reviews, like looking if people are asking questions, answering them, making sure it's all good. Like, it's not just a whack it up and then, oh yeah, and then the sales will come in. It's like a constant process, isn't it?
It really is. So thank you for saying that, because it is, and there is a lot involved. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, and you obviously edit out if I can't say this, but on my website I have lots of free guides for people as well. So some really simple few pages about how to get off to a good start, things you need to set up a listing. Kind of simple
No, that's
stuff, but
fine.
I try and make everything very simple so that someone can just download it and see at a glance, okay, this is what I need, this is what I need to do.
No, that sounds amazing, actually. And we'll provide like a link to your site as well, because it's always great for anyone listening that, there's at least some free resources. And then they know as well that if they are finding it really tricky, they can actually come to you for help and advice with your business. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
well, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for setting aside some time today to speak with me. It's been really informative.
Thank you so much, Dawn.